Okay, it being 1 p.m. on March 16th, we're going to start the regular meeting of the West Basin Engineering Operations Committee and a special meeting of the Board of Directors. So can we have a determination of a quorum?
Absolutely. We'll start with Director Deere. Here. Director Williams. Here. Director Gray.
Here.
Director President Houston. And Chair Alvarez.
With that, we're going to move on to the action calendar. And before we get going,
Want to public comment?
that I forgot about public comment. Are there any public, public comment?
Okay, and I do want to acknowledge that we have Mr. Greg Spiker from PV Golf Club here today, and he's prepared to make a public comment. But he's also anticipating a couple of his colleagues to join us today. So if it would please the committee, perhaps we can postpone those public comments for the agenda item that they're here for, which is the PV lateral recommendation to award. Great. So other than Mr. Spiker's comments, we don't have any other comments here in the room, but we'll check on the online platform for anyone who may want to recognize themselves by raising their hands. And I do not see any hands raised on the platform, but I will add that I anticipate Mr. Ralph Felix, District Manager from Cal Water, to join us momentarily. And so perhaps we can also have his public comment during the PV lateral agenda item. So with that, no public comments at this time, Chair Alvarez.
Okay, thank you. So then we will move on to presentations, which I believe we don't have none.
Correct.
And so the next item is the action calendar. And on the action calendar, what I was going to say is, since we have Mr. Spiker here, who wants to speak to the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipelines, and we have a couple of other individuals who will be coming that you referenced. As soon as they're here, we'll move this item up. And I think they just walked in.
Just one. Okay, so, and we just have Mr. Ralph Felix, who also will be arriving shortly.
Okay, so what we'll take this item then out of sequence and put this item so that they can take advantage of the rest of the day. And what we'll do is we'll have the presentation first, and then they can speak to the item and then move on. So
Okay.
go ahead and
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'm sorry, but I'm not able to hear you clearly.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me better now? I don't know what the speakers are doing. Okay. I will speak more loud.
Would you speak into the mic then? I don't know.
Like this?
Speakers in the room?
You're supposed to work.
We don't have speakers in the room, so that's only for online.
Oh, these are online?
Those are only for online.
Oh, okay. So then I just have to speak louder. Fair enough. With that, we'll move forward with the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline project, the construction award, and Mr. General Manager will introduce that item.
We're going to item 5D, is what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay, and I don't see Mr. Ralph Felix here, but we'll go ahead and move into that item. So we have Veronica Jovia, our project manager for this project, who will give the presentation as well as the recommendation to award. So please, Veronica.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez, members of the committee. I'm here to present an item that you can find on page item number 153 for item 5D. And this is for the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline project. Please note that this particular board item has 3 action items on it. And one of them will be for the construction award of the pipeline. The other one will be to request an increase for budget, and the third one will be basically the approval for the advertising of the pump station project. On past meetings, we have been presenting these.
Sorry, what page are you on now?
It's page 153 of your packet.
153?
153,
Thank
yes.
you.
And during the past presentations that we have done at the as part of the information board committee, we have been presenting some of the logistics that went through the bidding process. So on these 4 items, to make sure that we move on time, I'm just going to concentrate on the results and the following action items. However, if there's any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I can go back to those logistics. We went through the process of obtaining bids on February 14, 2023, and we received 3 bids that you can find on page 154, table A, which summarizes 3 bids that were received. The lowest responsive bidder, sorry, I apologize for my voice, is Blois Construction at $8,975,993. And their bids were reviewed and checked for any errors, and they were deemed as a responsive bidder. Please know that we also did review the other bidders' items, and we found that College & Sons was missing the local business enterprise form, and therefore they were deemed as non-responsive. The $8.9 million project that the bidder, the Blois Construction, produced is still $1,736,113 greater than the original construction engineer's cost estimate that was $7,239,880. So with this, I'm going to ask you to maybe go to the PowerPoint presentation and go over some of the items that the committee asked us to look at last time, and then go back again to the board item to continue with this conversation. So the presentation can be found on page 158 for those that are on the audience. And next page, please. And this particular PowerPoint presentation goes over those items that our committee asked us to review during the analysis of why the cost became a little bit or came higher than the estimated, as well as some of the other funding mechanisms that we have for the project, and as well as other considerations to see if we could cut budget. Next slide, please.
Let me ask a question, if I might, on
Yeah.
the first page, where the firm did not turn in paperwork.
Yes,
They also had the highest bid. If they turned in the paperwork, would it have affected?
it was missing one of the requirements.
Would have made it different? Would it have made a difference if they did?
Well, they were the highest bidder.
So it wouldn't have done any good.
There was no difference.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
Clarified, so they're also a local business.
Yeah.
And so we give a little bit of a preference for the,
yeah, but they did not submit the form, and their bid was 11.1 million. So they were really high.
so the preference would not have made a difference.
You wouldn't have made it, it would not be the lowest bid.
Just wondering if that happens often, or do you notify people that they need to get their paperwork in, or what do you do in a case like that usually? I could see that bid was high. If it was a little closer to the other bids, it might have made a difference. Just no one had told them. I'm sure it was in the bid package, but I guess they didn't.
If I'm not mistaken, the missed requirement had to do with some of the grant funding requirements.
It had to do with one requirement from the district, which is to submit the small local business enterprise form. So essentially, that it has happened in the past. It has been brought out to the directors to make a determination and determine legally whether they could waive it or not. So it's when there's like a borderline, when the price is, I don't know, for purposes of example, like $5 difference, it's a decision that could be discussed with the board, and decision can be done. And legal is also included on that to guide the board on, on what they can do and what they cannot.
I just don't, it's not a regular thing that the firms that are eligible for that don't turn in their application.
It's one item that we noticed, like when we were starting the process, it was, something that they will miss. So during our previous meetings, we do make sure that we tell them, do not forget to submit this, because if you don't submit it, you may become not eligible for the meeting.
Good, thank you.
Follow up on that. So basically what you're saying is there's a minor bid irregularity. A low bidder will be disqualified on the basis of the minor bid irregularity, even though it results in a savings to the district.
So the district has a criteria, a check form, basically, that we do tell the contractor, part of your bid form needs to include all of these items.
Right.
And that particular form is, included as part of that criteria. As reviewers, we look into, is it there? Is it certified? Is it, we go through all that process. And when there's an irregularity, like on this one, we make sure that we just don't discard it. To make sure that, one, it's not somewhere lost, because sometimes documents can be lost. Second, we do follow up with legal to tell them, we are missing this. What is your determination? And then three, we also bring it to the board, so the board is aware of what that was. And then legal, if the board has a question in regards, sorry, excuse me. In regards to whether can they waive or not the process, legal basically tells them the rules of whether one action can be taken or not.
So I summarize, if there is a minor bid irregularity, you would allow the contractor to correct it.
Once the bid is submitted, no. 2 p.m. or whatever that time is, they need to submit the package as it is. If it's not there at our level, then we'll mark it up, we'll note it, and we'll bring it to legal as part of a review. And then we will just take it to the board for their final, review and determination.
So I guess I have a request. If I can get a report on what the actual procedure is for dealing with minor bid irregularities. Contractors from time to time will have bids that are good bids, but they will have missed one minor item. And if they happen to be the low bidder, sometimes get disqualified or not considered because it's just very cut and dry. However, it is not necessarily to the benefit of the agency to disqualify those. So I'd like to see what that policy is currently and then maybe bring it back for discussion. All right, that side.
Yeah, but in this case, it wouldn't have made a difference. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Question, Mr. Chair, to the general manager. Did our consultant, not consultant, but our counsel, our legal counsel opine on this?
I'm sorry.
Whether or not this could be considered as a minor infraction. Did you seek the general counsel's opinion on this?
I did not, but let me ask it.
We did.
Yeah, but so, and what did he say?
The result was that the third bidder was deemed non-responsive.
We followed the process, and this is it. Thank you.
So, going back to the PowerPoint presentation, so you can see a table that basically summarizes the cost of the project through the 90% through to today. This is a table that you have seen in the past. And essentially in November 2022, we did go through this table in which we show the cost of the project from 12.9 million at that 90% design level to 14.8 million at that 100%. And at that point, we had an action item to get an authorization to increase the budget by another 1.9 million. That was approved during the November 22 board meeting. That column that is called latest and it has estimate, which is the pipe bed plus the 100% pump design, that summarizes or includes now the new cost of that we received through the low bidder that, as we're referring to, is still higher than the original engineer's cost estimate. So the total cost right now is $16,784,430. So that basically is bringing us in a delta on the differential cost between the 14.8 million and the 16.7 million of $1,909,724. No, $1,909,724 dollars, which is a 13% cost increase. Next column, please. So looking at the suggestion of the board on itemizing or finding where are those values that result in additional cost increase, we did look at the bids and as well as on the engineer's cost estimate. And it seems like there has been a change on the increase on the materials, essentially. The most notorious ones are the ones that are here highlighted. PVC material, it was considerably greater than the original engineer's cost estimate, as well as the mobilization, elements of the service meter bolt, and the appurtenances such as airbag, gloves, and assemblies. So moving forward to next page, please. We also did take a look at some other considerations of how we could reduce the cost of the project or cut some of the cost of it. And essentially, we did look at the laterals that are coming up from the main pipeline that is taking the water from the existing recycled water line to the end point in Palos Verdes Estates. We did take a look at two laterals. They are 4-inch service line, and together it's a little bit over $100,000 on cost just by taking into account the PVC pipeline. These costs does not include mobilization or the mobilization, like our percentages are also components of those. However, staff doesn't recommend to cut these laterals as we went through a couple of years of discussions with the city council and members of the community to see what is to basically sell this project to, as you guys might remember, we had issues with the pump station location in which it was moved from one location to another one. And then the community basically came out to an understanding of this being the project. This is what was also approved and also allow also for the pump station easement. So cutting out these pipelines could have some issues on finalizing those approvals from those cities when we get to the final permit, which is the encroachment that contractors will be performing, as well as the communities might be a little bit upset if we don't install those services. There are 4 services in this, which are like parks, medians, as well as the schools. Next slide, please. So looking at what are the different sources for the funding. So this particular table shows the different sources that we have acquired for this particular project, which range all the way from grants, loan, third-party agreements, as well as West Basin input. Looking at the one 1.9 million cost increase that occurred in November 2022, and having that approved, basically there's still that $1,909,724 that is still a delta to match up to the $16.7 million total cost project. So this basically, in order to move forward with the project, to approve the project, we are going to be asking this particular board meeting also to allow for increasing the budget, the total budget of the project. Next slide, please. Now, moving forward in regards to where is the rest of the project at. So again, the pipeline construction is expected to be awarded this month, March 2023. And right now, the pump station is at a 100% design submittal. We are reviewing these plans, and City of Torrance, as well as LA County Flood Control District, has those plans, and they are being reviewed. With this, basically, the next step will be addressing those final comments, preparing and assemble that bid package, and be able to go out for bid. There is a new process that the district has started, which is the gate process, in which the board, I believe it was back in September, was asked the staff basically to bring these items that are ready to advertise for approval by the board in order to advertise them. What we are presenting here is we're asking for permission that once we finish this 100% design submittal review and finish the bid package, that at this board meeting, you allow us to have that permission so we can start advertising as quick as we can once the bid package is assembled, to eliminate any additional meeting that could delay the project another month. So with this, can you go to the next page? Thank you. So this will basically put us on a schedule in which the pipeline basically will be able to start to be awarded in March and have a construction notice to proceed around like early May or late April, as we have to go still through the contractual documentation on getting agreement signed, insurance, all the documentation in place. And with a construction duration of 9 months, sorry, my voice, will take us straight to the end of January of next year for a project completion. Now, the pump station, hoping that the City of Torrance and LA County will be able to give us those final comments or approvals at the end of this month. We'll be able to address those final comments, assemble the bid package in April, and start the process early May. Again, we are heavily dependent on those permitting agencies, and but again, because in the past they have taken a while, we would like to ask the board to allow us that once we have these comments, address them, get the bid package assembled, and start that procedure, that gate process. So the pump station construction duration is approximately 8 months, and that will take us to early spring of 2024 for project completion. And with this, we can probably go back to page 150. Right? So I can read the recommendation. So the recommendation is that the board, 1, award the construction services contract to Blois Construction for the construction of Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline Project, pipeline bid package, in the amount of $8,975,993. Authorize the general manager to execute the contract and approve a 10% contingency in the amount of $897,599 for a total not to exceed contract amount of $9,873,592. Action item number 2, approve a $1,909,724 increase to the total project budget for a new estimated project budget total of $16,784,430. And action item number 3, authorize the general manager to issue a request for bids for the project's pump station fee package. With this, I conclude my presentation. I'll be happy to open up for any questions.
Okay, Veronica, thank you very much. We have various guests here this afternoon, so if any of you would like to come up and speak to the project, this would be an appropriate time to do so.
This doesn't work. Fun's over here, so we can sit here. Yeah.
How are you doing? Good afternoon. I'm David Stocky. I'm the general manager at Palos Verdes Golf Club. And we just wanted to show our support for the project. We do feel that it's going to be amazing for the community as a whole, and obviously be sustaining for not just the community, but for the club itself to provide recreation for the city. We do currently use about $72 million or 72 million gallons of water. This was designed for 216 acre feet, which covers that amount. And our intent would be to use at least 90% of that amount. And then potable would just be for our greens and potentially chipping areas, but a 90% usage at least. So it would go well used and certainly benefit many, many folks. Wanted to also let you know that we did meet with the City Council of Palos Verdes Estates Tuesday evening. And we have went to them with the West Basin letter and asked for them to authorize the additional $200,000 that was requested as an additional funding mechanism that was requested from us. And the City Council did approve that unanimously. So that has also been approved. So we're ready and willing to be a great partner to you all and to make this project happen.
Thank you. I do have a comment/request. As you can see, the cost of this project continues to increase. And the latest increase that we have to now find money for is $1.9 million. So we're very grateful and appreciative of the additional $200,000. But would it be something that you can consider is an additional contribution to the project? This is really very beneficial for the golf course, and it would be helpful to all of us if you guys could step up a little bit more in terms of making an additional contribution. Food for thought, but we would really appreciate it. There are other analogies that I could present to you of similar types of organizations who have made significant contributions to pipeline projects of this nature in order to assure themselves of recycled water.
Thank you. We will certainly consider that. I just thought it was important for you guys to to be aware of the 500,000 initial contribution that we agreed to, and then the request from the letter was asking for 150 additional plus another 50,000 towards the pump station. So we did pass that through our board. We have our board president here today, Steve Lopes, and one of our members of the committee, Greg Spiker. So we took that $200,000 additional ask, which was roughly proportionate 3.8% of the project increase. And so that's what we took to the city of Palos Verdes Estates and provided them the insight going into it and got that approval. So we just wanted to share that's where we're at. We felt we were doing everything that was asked of us to try to keep this baby moving forward and the project to have a good positive outcome and finally take flight. But we will consider that.
Empty your pockets before you leave.
You got it. Start with a pen.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I just also just express my appreciation for the PV Golf Club and for General Manager Stokes and Mr. Spiker and Mr. Lopez for being here personally to voice their support and to provide consideration to move this project forward. So I really appreciate all that the club and the city has done.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, this is Director Gray.
Oh, Director Gray, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to thank the two gentlemen who are there today. I know Director Williams is the representative from that area, and you have a very good, excellent representative from that particular district. So I do appreciate the effort to support the project financially. I acknowledge the request of the chair of the committee, but I also want to acknowledge the work that the representative from that area has had diligently supporting that project and the general manager. So thank you to the two gentlemen who came today and for the support.
Afternoon, directors, West Basin staff, and the audience. Members of the audience, excuse me. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak today about this project. I first want to state that Cal Water fully supports this recycled water project. We see it as a unique opportunity to provide an additional source of water to an area that historically has been fully dependent on purchased water. We are committed to seeing this project become a success for all parties and agencies involved. We at Cal Water agreed years ago to provide $2.5 million in funding towards this additional supply. In addition, Cal Water is looking internally to determine whether we would be able to provide any additional funding to help offset the increased costs arising out of the COVID pandemic. This project is really important to Cal Water, to the community up on the Palos Verdes Peninsula. So we would like to see this hopefully start construction soon and be completed soon. But I really wanted to just be here in person to let the board know that Cal Water supports this project and is also looking at providing additional funding. Thank you very much.
Comments from the board member?
Yeah, I thank everybody, especially our partners who are stepping up with the funding that needs to be in place for us to go forward with this. And I've been on this board since 2014. I guess as an active member, 2015, and we started talking about this project back then. Of course, the price tag was a little bit different than it is now, but time has a way of getting in the way of things. But it seems though that everyone who was in favor of this project are still there, and I think we need to get cracking on this project before the price goes up because of time. And part of it is time that where we are right now, but it's not going to get any cheaper. Now we'd have to look at our general manager, to his staff, and then working with our contractor to keep the price down. Change orders will not be accepted for anything.
Okay.
But if the general manager is happy with the cost estimate as it is now, and that we've done everything we can to keep the price down, the cost, we know we don't have a magic wand that we can wave over the project and there be no cost increase. But we got to do everything we can to make sure that price doesn't climb way out of sight. Okay. And I just want to ask you the question, the bidding process as it is right now, as we've gone through, is it in your opinion is fine? I mean, we have a good bid price that we can live with and go forward with.
If the question is, would I prefer to have a cheaper price? The
Of
answer is
course, we
yes.
know that.
But I think the strong support that we're hearing from the partners from PV Golf Club and my good friend Ralph Felix from Cal Water Services, I think that it's vital that we move this project forward. It has multitude of benefits that you're well aware of. We have a crack team here who are ready to provide the project management and the construction management. This project is going to create jobs. We have our project labor agreement that has been added to this project. So it'll provide opportunities to reach at-risk people to help them re-enter the workforce. And so there's a multitude of reasons why we want to move forward on this project. Now, the obligation would be on my staff to make sure that we keep this project on time and on budget, and that's our commitment.
The other thing that's important for us to recognize is this will be the first project to bring recycled water to the peninsula. And the success of this project will be key to getting more recycled water projects to the peninsula. So I think we should really look at this as more than just the bottom line at this time, but for the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments? All right, with that, we have a couple other, yes, sir.
Record Ray as well.
Director Gray, do you have any other comments? Couple other gentlemen, would you like to speak, or just an opportunity if you'd like to?
Just real quick, thank you for having us here today. I'm Steve Lopes. I'm the president of Palos Verdes Golf Club, and I do appreciate, we've been at this project for about 10 years, I believe, to try to make it bring to fruition. We appreciate your time and efforts. We think it's a right thing to do for many reasons as well. We appreciate your time and efforts. And, again, as Mr. Stockey said, we voted as a board unanimously to move forward and provide the additional funding that we were asked for from the West Basin Water District. We just think it's a fantastic project, and we really support it and appreciate all the efforts that the staff here at West Basin has done to try to get it to this point. And so we would encourage you to push forward as we can too. So thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Just very quickly, Greg Spiker. I'm a member of the golf club. And I just want to thank Director Williams for all your work on this over the years, General Manager Barkev, the staff I've worked pretty closely with over the last couple of years. Obviously, we're as a golf club are very, very supportive of bringing recycled water to the peninsula, our golf course, and thank all of you for your consideration and hard work getting it to where it is today. Let's get it over the finish line now.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Any comments, further comments on this item?
Well, I'd just like to add that not only is this venue is a golf course, but it's a very important community meeting place. There are lots of community events that take place at that golf course, and I've been there again, like I said, since 2014, and many community events that are put on by the Chamber of Commerce, by other city organizations, but it is really a community-based organization, really, when you look at it. So I think there will be a lot of folks that will be appreciative of this project, and again, would be the impetus for additional water recycling projects on the hill. Thank you.
Okay, I do have a couple of comments. One is the 10% contingency that we're being asked to approve today. That is for, I would assume, change orders.
Right. Contingencies are generally set to handle unknowns on the project, risks that may arise, which typically arise in the form of change orders. That's exactly right.
The answer is change orders. So 10%, and I understand there's a lot of discussion in the industry. I always consider to be at the high end of change orders. So this is just a comment for future consideration, that change orders be programmed at a 5 to 7% level. And the other item is to kind of reiterate Director Williams' comments, and that hopefully the change orders will be zero. We can save $890,000. Then the last question is with respect to the increase in the budget. Obviously, some of that is now being made up with the additional contribution. So that will reduce the amount of money that we're gonna have to contribute from the number that is before us right now. And that money will be coming out of what fund?
I think the preference that I've heard from the committee and even in the board is to have cost increases absorbed through our current reserve, or I'm sorry, current revenues and cash reserves, specifically not to increase any debt for those cost increases. So if that's the preference of here today, we could certainly amend the recommendation to your pleasure.
Well, if we could do that, I think we have spoken to that effect in the past and at the board, as you referenced.
Right. I think our staff report also indicates that higher in the text under fiscal impact.
So with that, we look this forward to the board, Director Williams?
I would concur with that.
I'd like to say something, Mike.
Oh, go ahead.
I've been on the board longer than the rest of you guys, and
Yes, you have.
we see like we just started talking about this project not long after I got on the board. We're still talking about it. But it's really gratifying to see the community support for the project. And it's gratifying to see that we are making progress towards the conclusion of this project finally. Great. That's all.
Okay, well, gentlemen, thank you. You're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting if you'd like.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ralph.
The next item is item 5A, which is the action plan for filter 7 and 8 crack repair. So, Mr. General Manager, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, sir. And this item, we've had several discussions in the committee regarding the stability of the Title 22 filter basins, specifically 7 and 8. We've had an engineering report that indicated that the seismic stability is at risk from a certain seismic event. And we've had subsequently taken that basin offline to mitigate that risk. But then we have received other direction from the board to restore the basin to operation, which we have rescinded the directive to Veolia to remove that basin from service. We also recommended proceeding with certain seismic retrofits that were recommended by the consulting team who did the evaluation. But we also received direction from the board to not award those retrofits, but to come back with an action plan for crack repairs. And so that's what this item does. But along the way, we did consult with Carollo, who is the the engineer of record who did the seismic evaluation of the walls, and got some additional information that we want to bring forward for your consideration, in addition to bringing back the crack repair plan that was asked for. And so with that being said, I want to hand it over to our Executive Manager of Engineering Operations, Barkev Mazurlian, to provide more information about this item and to provide the 2 recommendations.
Thank you, Greg. Chairman Alvarez, board members. We can start with a quick background. I think Greg provided a good summary. But just a quick background is our Title 22 water that are filtration basins at the Edward C. Little facility. That Title 22 water is used for irrigation and as source water for the satellite plants that serve the refineries. So the water that runs through the filter basins accounts for 52% of the entire water that we produce. It counts directly from the filter basins and indirectly for the other 48%. So out of the 37,000 acre feet per year of water we produce, West Basin produces, close to 20,000 acre feet is directly reliant on the operation and performance of the filter basins. And that water goes out of Edward C. Little, goes out through the distribution system and serves close to 500 customers. That's 350 customers within West Basin service area on Torrance, and another about 140 customers in the LADWP. So the filter basins, 14 of them that we have, are really crucial for us to meet demands of the West Basin Recycled Water Program. And over the last decade, individual filters began experiencing frequent under drain failures and media loss that rendered some of them inoperable, mainly because they're beyond their 20 years useful life. We fixed a few of the filter basins. We fixed 3 of them in the last 4 years. Some of them were fixed and brought down again, and we made a larger fix, a larger rehab. But to prevent further loss of treatment capacity, the district developed the Title 22 filter rehab project that, like, Manager of Engineering, Wendell, is going to be speaking to as item 5B. But in that project, the rehab project included comprehensive filter assessment, included evaluation of alternatives, a cost-benefit analysis, and a completion of a design bid package to go out. What it also included was a structural analysis of the walls along the north wall along filters 7 and 8. So if we can go to packet page 89. Onto the accompanying presentation, you'll see an aerial view of the filters 1 through 10, and we have an indication of where filters 7 and 8 are. So filters 7 through 10 were added to the existing structure at the time of filters 1 to 6 as part of the phase 2 expansion of our Edwards C. Little facility. So the north walls on filters 7 and 8 were originally designed as non-water bearing walls. They weren't designed to hold water against them. So the structural analysis that our consultants performed, it was really triggered by the observations that we and the consultants had when we conducted site visits for the overall rehab project. We noticed visible cracks and some leaking at the expansion joints. So the structural engineers conducted a finite element analysis to verify the degree of the structural deficiency. And as part of this analysis, they looked at multiple load combinations under various scenarios, under normal scenario operation, under flooding conditions, and under seismic conditions. Findings from that structural evaluation revealed that structural deficiencies in the walls. The evaluation steps, its findings, its recommendations are all attached to this memorandum, to this staff report. The memo is on packet page 7. Here with the presentation. So the recommended improvements coming in from that structural analysis were specifics. Those recommendations were previously discussed, as Greg mentioned. They included some lateral bracing. You can see it here in the graphic, and increased concrete beam depth. The increased beam depth will assist with reducing shear forces at the top of the walls, while the lateral bracing assists with the ability to resist hydrostatic and seismic load combinations. So, as Greg mentioned, late last year, West Basin staff took steps to proceed with the structural improvements and issued the request for bids for the work. And earlier this year, the board elected to not award the construction services contract, and asked staff to bring back a plan to repair the cracks only, which brings us here. On the next slide, on packet page 90, you'll see some photos of those cracks on the north wall 7 and 8. These photos here on packet page 90 were taken in August 2021. The photo on the left shows 2 cracks that staff noticed at the time on top of the wall. At the time we measured these cracks at around 1/16 of an inch. The middle photo shows a large crack at the expansion joint between the original filters and the new filters, which is currently leaking. The photos on the right show the vertical, horizontal, and diagonal cracks at the upper half of that exterior wall. Next page, please, on packet page 91. These photos were taken this year, so about a year and a half of the previous photos. So this year, during the site visit, staff witnessed that those cracks that we noticed earlier in the year were noticeably larger than before. The two most apparent cracks previously seen on top of the wall were now stretching to inside the basin along the quarter-sized hole that you see in the middle photo over there. These cracks appear to have doubled in width over the last year and a half. So as follow-up to the board's request, staff began developing an action plan for a modified cracks only, if you will, scope of work. So we connected with the structural engineers to formulate a revised and appropriate scope for repairing the cracks only. We asked some questions, and in response, the structural engineers provided responses. They summarized these responses in a letter that's attached to the report on package page 94. There's a letter there from the structural engineers. But the letter says, I'll try to summarize keynotes from the letter. The structural engineers say, yes, crack repairs do reduce the likelihood of those cracks expanding and allowing for more water to flow through and cause spalling. However, the structural engineers indicated that although it is a good idea to repair the cracks, it is likely they will return if the wall is not supported or stress reduced. They said the crack repairs will remove the risk of leaking, but will not provide structural support to the wall. If corrosion has already begun inside the walls, crack repairs will not stop it. Simply filling the stress cracks with mortar does not address the overstressed condition of the wall. So in summary, the structural engineers indicated that although it is worth performing crack repairs without any other recommended structural improvements, like the bracing or the beam, the cracks will reappear. When reinforcement, they indicated that when reinforcement in the wall is overstressed with static loading, the wall will likely fail when an earthquake introduces dynamic load. What could happen if the wall fails? Let's turn to packet page 92 for the last slide of the presentation. Aside from potential injury to crews working in the area, structural failure of the north wall could result in the flooding of the pipe gallery shown there on the right of the slide. Similar to what occurred at Hyperion in July 2021, the flooding of below ground level pipe galleries could cause significant damage to critical infrastructure, including actuators and blowers that are needed for the operation of the filters. A photo of the two blowers that we have for the first 10 filters are shown there on the left. Those two blower systems are located just north of the wall in question. In a flood scenario, our contract operators, Veolia, estimate that production of the Title 22 that serves those 500 customers of West Basin could be reduced to 0 to 2.75 MGD, million gallons per day. So, based on the information provided to staff today, including the latest clarifications provided by the structural engineer, staff still recommends forming the original scope of work, which included installation of steel bracing and the added concrete beam depth, as well as the crack repairs, to the cost of ranging between 160 to 180,000. Based on this and the standing direction from the board for a cracks only repair, the recommendation before you has a couple of options. I will read the recommendations. that the board authorize the general manager to either, one, proceed with staff's recommendation and reissue a request for bids for the filter 7 and 8 structural improvements project, in parentheses, original scope of work, or two, issue a request for bids for crack repairs only. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board members?
I want to know why there are two choices. What is your recommendation? And
Our recommendation is number one, which is to proceed with installing the structural improvements. The reason why there is two is because the board voted in January, late January, to implement the cracks only, to come back with a cracks only plan, action plan, and present that to the board.
how much money are we talking about? Between the two?
So if you're doing the structural improvements, it's, we got a bid. The bid that we rejected was close to $160,000. So with contingency budget, you're looking at somewhere between $160,000 and $180,000. If you were to do the cracks only, we think that'll cost around $60,000. The difference being around $120,000 between the two.
Figure that out. Anyway, I'm not on the committee, so I can't vote on it, but I think we
You
should,
can make a comment.
I think we should take the staff's recommendation, number one.
Thank you. Director Gray, do you have any comments?
Guess not.
Director Williams?
Staff has convinced me.
Okay. I remain unconvinced. I do not see any real justification in the supplemental letter from Corolla. Besides reiterating what they previously had said in their original report. The likelihood of a catastrophic failure due to seismic condition is very, very small. And that it would be catastrophic and that you would lose all of the water so that you would flood the entire pipe gallery is almost non-existent. And I always like to use the analogy, but you can always have a 747 crash into a nuclear power plant, albeit the probability of that happening is almost non-existent, but it cannot be denied. I just think that this is overkill for the issue that's being addressed here. I think that there are much bigger issues that we need to address before we continue to spend money. I agree with Director here that it is not that much money in this case compared, for example, to the amount of money we just agreed to spend on the Palos Verdes recycled water line. But it's nonetheless money that can be better spent elsewhere. So my recommendation is that we proceed with option number two, which was the direction that had previously been given, both at this committee and at the board level, and that this came back with two recommendations is very frustrating to this director. So that's that would be what I would move. And what would you like to do, Director Williams?
I'd like to move staff's recommendation based on the information received today. So I cannot support your recommendation or your whatever.
So you send it to the board without a
So
recommendation.
Yes.
move this forward to the board without a recommendation.
That makes it easy. Or
Yeah. Okay, we will move on to the next item, which is the authorization to issue a request for bids for the Title 22 filter rehabilitation replacement project. So Mr. General Manager, please introduce this item.
Okay, thank you, Chair Alvarez. The committee may recall a presentation, an info item that talked about the Title 22 filter project at large. And that's when we first began the discussion around the previous item that we just decided on. And so with that, I want to just take a moment to say that this committee also asked the general manager to follow a practice of asking for permission to bid for construction contracts. And so I've incorporated that into my practices here at the district. It's not an admin policy. I do have the policy entitlement to issue requests for bids. However, I'm happy to accommodate the request of this committee. And so that's what we're doing here. And so with that being said, this particular project, as I think Bark have indicated in the recent discussion for item A, is vital to the overall service of our water recycling to, I think you said, about 500 customers. And so with that, this project will do many things that will help us meet the service levels expected to our customers. For example, like the Palos Verdes Peninsula, should they receive recycled water through the PV lateral, and the city of Torrance that currently receives that water, as well as all of the other irrigation customers, not to mention our commercial customers such as the refineries. So I want to now turn it over to Wendell, Manager of Engineering, Wendell Johnson, to talk more about this particular request to advertise. And to be able to answer any questions you may have beyond the presentations that we've given in the past meetings. Wendell.
Thank you, Greg, for that. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee and board. You can find a copy of the staff report on page 96 of your agenda packet and a copy of the presentation on page 102 of the agenda package. I'm going to go over the staff report. You've seen the presentation several times, but if you would like for me to also go through the presentation, I will also do that. Okay. Just some of the background about this particular project. Beginning in 2013, the Title 22 filters began to experience underdrain failures that resulted in media loss that deemed them inoperable at the time. Staff performed in-house repairs to provide a quick turnaround and bring the filters back online. But unfortunately, the repairs only extended the useful life of the filters by 4 or 5 years until they failed again. Having filters offline impact the production of Title 22 water by reducing the overall treatment capacity. Currently, ECL has 5 filters offline due to some type of failure. When the demand exceeds the overall treatment capacity, potable water is supplemented as makeup source water along the treatment process to meet these demands. In 2017, due to the frequent underdrain failures, the Title 22 filters R&R project was initiated, which included a condition assessment of the filters, an evaluation of R&R alternatives, and a cost analysis, a structural analysis, and a construction bid package for solicitation. This package solicitation was completed in June of 2022. Staff has developed 2 alternatives for consideration. Alternative 1 proposes to perform R&R on all 11 filters which have had no prior repair, while alternative 2 proposes performing R&R only on the 5 filters that are offline. Although alternative 1 has a higher initial capitalization expenditure than alternative 2, the non-economic benefits of alternative 1 includes increased reliability, customer service, and operational flexibility while limiting major future repairs and interruption. For this reason, staff is recommending the implementation of alternative 1. It is expected it is expected that by implementing alternative one, the amount of potable water supplement which is used will be reduced between 25 and 75%. A reduction in this range will allow for the potential project to be paid back between 3 and 7 years. At this time, we have completed all tasks designated for the project to have the construction bid package ready for solicitation. So at this time, I will take any questions that the committee members or board members may have about the project.
Okay, thank you very much, Wendell. Director Deere, do you have any questions?
No question.
Director Gray, do you have any questions or comments? Williams?
I would have, my question would be to the general manager.
Direct him.
Where are you on this?
I support the staff recommendation. I think that the reliability is necessary to maintain continuity of service over the next period until we transform the facility for other purposes. And certainly we'll be having more conversations around that in the coming days and weeks as a board. But also this question of service levels to our customers, because this is an integral part of being able to provide high quality water to our irrigation customers, to our refineries, and ultimately our reverse osmosis and microfilter systems that also serve Chevron and the West Coast Barrier takes in reject water into these systems as well. And so our ability to really process all of that water is going to help all of our operations become more reliable going forward. I believe the committee and the board have a goal to ensure that we're going 100% recycled water into the barrier. And this is an important component of that overall process to be able to do so. We have a lot of reasons why we want to rehabilitate all of these 11 filters. And I recommend that we do so.
Would you consider that to be a good safety factor?
Yeah, I think the operational flexibility is what Wendell indicated as one of the non-economic benefits that we're anticipating. And so also the avoidance of further interruptions due to under drain failures or other such failures that'll take basins offline unexpectedly. And so those other tangential benefits are worth obtaining.
Thank you.
We have considered this item in the past, and it's back before us again. One of the things I think we need to keep in the back of our minds, and I keep it in the back and the forefront of our mind, is the status of the Ed.C. Little facility and our whole bigger operation. And the fact that we may not have any reliable water supply beyond, at this point, we have no reliable water supply beyond 2016. We continued in
What date did you give?
2016,
16.
26, I'm sorry. Yes. I thank you for catching. Okay. Otherwise, yes, we would already been there. So we have also discussed what we should be doing with the Ed.C. Little plan. And consistent with that discussion is minimize the level of expenditure at this time until we know with some certainty, you never have 100% certainty, but with some certainty as to what our position is going to be. And if we continue to invest money in an asset that we may or may not be able to take advantage of in the future, that's not a wise investment. And it is not, from a public policy point of view, direction that's worth pursuing. So for those reasons in the back of our minds and in the forefront, we need to be very considerate of what are other options. So if you would please go to packet page 121. And 120, they're both, the one is for applies to alternative one, the other one applies to alternative two. In both cases, it does show a do nothing alternative. The do nothing alternative is shown in the blue. And the do nothing alternative is basically to continue to maintain the plant for the next couple of years until such a point as we know with some certainty what we're going to be able to do. The do nothing alternative is the least expensive of these alternatives. It is doable. You can keep that plant running. It is not impossible. And it's what I call the bailing wire approach sometimes, but sometimes that's what you have to do until you can have some certainty as to the amount of money that you're willing to invest in. And it's worth investing in facilities. So I'm not supportive of either option. I'm supportive of doing nothing at this point, continuing to do the maintenance that's required to continue those to operate the facility until such time, which hopefully will be resolved in the next couple of years, as we know what direction we're finally going to take. We have discussed this as not ad infinitum, but we have discussed this quite a bit. And following all of those discussions, it's always come back at the end, like, we need to be careful about how much money is being invested. So in the interest of just being wise and prudent with our investments, I think at this time that we do nothing is the appropriate approach. And that would be my recommendation, is to table this until we know best how much water, if any water, and what our commitments are going to be to that plant. That would be my recommendation. And Director Williams, what's your position, if you want to recommend that or not?
Based on that, and based on the fact that we have not heard from Mayor Bass as where she is on the recycled water program period. And if she's going to maintain the direction that Eric Garcetti was moving in, or she has another plan, we haven't heard that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if we take the position of doing nothing right now, what harm would that create for us in the next 2 years? Any thoughts?
I have thoughts.
If you look at just at these graphs on packet page 120 and 121, you basically have 5 or 7.5 years before you intercept the curve spending a lot of money. So years, which has been what's happening for the last couple of years, that the plant just continues to operate, is maybe a little more difficult on the operators, but they're being paid, very well paid, to operate that plant and to maintain that plant and keep it running. And so I believe, and my position and my vote will be, is they just continue to do nothing beyond the maintenance that is required to continue to operate.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that in answer to Director Williams' question, as we indicated, interruptions in the Title 22 filter gallery will compromise our ability to produce disinfected tertiary water. And doing that we would have to introduce potable supply into the system to continue to maintain service to our customers. I think we all as a board would like to see less potable water used and more recycled water delivered. And so it's a value, core value of the boards, given the impact to the Colorado River Basin and the continued drought that we're seeing, current atmospheric rivers notwithstanding. When we look at the graphs here, the period between now and the intercept of 3 years or even the intercept of 4 years is that time where we can either do nothing, which to Director Alvarez's point would be the lower cost alternative. But should we wait to take action, that means we will still have 4 years before we reach that intercept. So if we start now, we can reach that intercept within 4 years. If we start a year from now, we will reach that intercept in 5 years. If we start 2 years from now, we will reach that intercept in 7 years. So acting now will help us get to that intercept point faster and achieve the break even that was articulated in our report, which is depending on the amount of reduction to potable water, we can see as much as a 3-year payback if we're able to recover the potable supply in full, or it might be a 7.5-year payback if the recovery of potable water is less. So there is some uncertainty on the payback, but we take action today and we'll be able to reduce that use of potable supply, save the district money, maintain reliability to our customers, and improve water quality overall.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments very much. I think we are very committed to maintaining a sustainable water supply in this region, and sustainability means a reduction in imported water. That reduction in imported water demand comes from multiple different potential sources, one of which is the recycling efforts that West Basin has led and led well. And I think we'll continue to lead, as well as conservation, which is another area that West Basin has led, and West Basin is doing more now than it has in the past, and will continue to do more. And will save significant amounts of water, all of which go to the greater regional good of reducing the imported water demand for this region. There are other projects out in our immediate world that will probably come to pass sooner rather than later, and hopefully a lot sooner rather than later, that will also reduce the need for imported water in the region. In our particular case here, I think we can continue to operate at least for another year or two until we have some certainty. And the deferral of this action, although it does mean that the construction won't start as soon, does provide us with a prudent opportunity to make a very wise investment, as opposed to hurrying something and then having second thoughts about it. We are not in a financial position where we have an indefinite amount of money. We were just presented with a budget yesterday where we're looking to raise our rates by a significant amount. After we had raised them last year, now we're going to raise them again by twice the amount that we raised them last year. So before we go in that direction, I think that we need to step back and really evaluate our overall position and our overall direction that we should be taking, and defer some of these projects that, although may be a good idea today, can be put on the shelf for a year or two. So with that, my motion is to table this matter for the time being until the board can provide further direction. We will be meeting on the 25th in a retreat where I believe we will be addressing some of these issues.
That in mind, I would support to table it.
Okay. And with that, we will move on then to the next item, which is item 5B. Item 5C the Juanita Melinda McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant Phase Two Expansion Project Construction Management Services Agreement Amendment. That's quite a mouthful. So, Mr. General Manager, please introduce that item, and so that I can actually speak, I'm gonna get some more water.
Okay, thank you, Chair Alvarez. And we have Kevin Cullen, who has been managing this construction project for, well, I'm not quite sure how long the construction's been going on, but I know Kevin has been doing a fine job. And I apologize for not being with the committee in the last session when Kevin provided what I understand was an excellent presentation as an info item about this topic. And so now we are here today to talk about the actual change order. And so please, I'll turn it over to Kevin now.
Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez, members of the committee and board. As Greg mentioned, this is a follow-up to last month's presentation where I highlighted the action item that was going to be upcoming and an overview of the project budget. Over there. I'll start with project highlights. So since last month's presentation, we've continued to make good progress on site. On the left-hand photo there, you can see the 6 custom engineered microfiltration skids have been installed as well as their module racks. The photo on the right was from February 27th after one of the other recent rain events. And I was out on site this morning and ironically, it looks a little bit like the same. The site is severely impacted by water, the amount of rain we've had. And it seems that the soil seems to percolate the water a little bit less and less with each rain event. But nonetheless, it is subsiding. So we're pushing forward on the front half of the plant while the back half continues to recover. Next slide, please. On the left-hand side, you can see the installation of the roofing panels going in and the canopy. And on the right-hand side, you can see the some photos from the final inspection of David's span blocking for the canopy also. Next slide. On the left-hand photo, we've begun, as of early March, connecting the CMF skids to the yard piping. So you can see exactly that. Hopefully the skid 1 is now connected to the effluent piping. And on the right-hand side, you can see continued work on the new perimeter wall. On the south and west sides of the plant, it's a 4-foot high CMU wall with chain link fencing and privacy slats. One more highlight that I did want to bring up for the project that's not shown here is next month at AWWA's spring conference. Myself and a member of the Hazen and Sawyer team will be co-presenting together and also highlighting the project.
Bravo.
Excellent.
When is that now?
That's April 5th in San Diego.
Which one is that one?
This is AWWA's spring conference.
Oh, but that's the Cal Nevada section or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's the second booth. Here's a standing slide we have on the status of our project labor agreement. As a reminder, for the PLA, we have 2 tiers of workers that we call. Tier 1 is local residents, so those are US zip codes that fall within the West Basin service area. Tier 2 is those that fall within LA County. And then we have a category for at-risk workers, which is for residents that live within 10 miles of this building that meet 2 of the following criteria there. So our goals for tier 1 are 30%. The contractor has made the request to the union halls, and through that we have exactly, I think it's 16.1% of workers that are coming directly out of the service area, but we have an improved local of 35% because the contractor has done the due diligence to get those workers. And unfortunately, the specific union halls for the trades that they need haven't been able to provide anymore, but they continue to check in and see if any do become available. On the at-risk side, we've got 5%, we're at 7.5, so doing well there. And then on apprentices, we are way above the DIR requirement of 16.7%, with about 23% of the man hours being provided by apprentices. Next slide. I think during the last presentation, it was asked to expand a little bit more on the local and at-risk hires. So here we have a breakdown of hours by company on site. You can see the bulk of the hours are coming out of D-Long, our general contractor, and Taft Electric, the electrical subcontractor. Next slide. Here expanded a little bit more, you can see the breakdown by tier 1 and tier 2, as well as the breakdown by division. So out of tier 1, we have 16.1% of the man hours being provided out of the West Basin service area, and then almost 60% being provided out of LA County. And the bulk of the hours making up that 16.1% is coming out of Division 1. So as highlighted during last month's ENO, the project is progressing well. However, there have been some schedule delays. Our original contract completion date was April 27th, so coming up in a short time here. We have encountered some delays to the construction schedule. There's a list of project-wide delays listed there, as well as some that are specific to our custom engineered microfiltration system, which the critical path of the project does go through. The bulk of the delays that we've encountered during this project have been related to procurement, mainly electrical components related to the semiconductor chip shortage. So our new projected completion date is August 31st, which is about 126-day calendar extension. Next slide. I expanded on this a little bit more at the last ENO meeting, but can expand a little bit more. The bulk of the action item before the committee today for this construction management services amendment does come from the time extension. The amendment will provide about 5 months of additional CM services. There was also a component which sought to bolster some of our commissioning support services and electrical inspection services. And this is just something that the project team recognized. There's been a little bit of turnover at Veolia with some key staff. So commissioning is a very sensitive time for the project where things can go great or they can also go wrong. So we've sought some services to bolster the team and make sure we're as prepared as possible. Also an added value section of the amendment, which is being covered by the contingency on the original board authorization for the CM agreement. I highlighted some of the added value that Boutier has been able to provide to the project and offset that as well as the last. As requested at the last presentation as well as a more robust discussion on the overall project budget. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the change orders that have been approved and executed to date. Change order 1 was for approximately $106,000. It was strictly for monies and no time. The highlights of change order 1 were also an added value to the project or a value adder. Was for 2 brand new pressure control valves for the MFG pipeline, which directly feed the system that we were rebuilding. So at the onset of the project, these valves were leaking considerably, and the Veolia team had made numerous repairs and they continued to leak. So we took the time to procure new valves, and this did fall under the American Iron and Steel requirements as required by our grant funding agreement. Highlights were a realignment of the potable water pipeline that was going to be down the Shell's private access road, Dominguez Street. So with some value engineering with the CM team and some West Basin staff, we have realigned the pipeline to come out of the road and into the planter. And that resulted in about a $94,000 of deducted change order. Change order 2, a higher dollar amount here, was for approximately $379,000. Biggest changes here were modifications to the electrical building HVAC design. This is for 2 individual systems for 2 electrical buildings on site, both air handling and condenser units with exterior mounted heating for these critical electrical buildings. Other highlights were an additional moisture barrier that was required for our chemical containment area. Due to the amount of moisture in the ground, the moisture readings we were getting out of the concrete were really high. So per the manufacturer recommendation, we added an additional coating underneath the actual chemical containment coating. Next slide, please. Looking forward, there is another one that's coming down the pipe. It is for roughly $400,000. The big item on change order 3, we're still working to get all the documentation for, is a major rerouting or reconfiguration of the largest duct bank on site. Apologize, the photo's a little bit small. We're on packet page 144 also. On the right side, you can see the duct bank that's highlighted in green. It's originally about a 3x6 duct bank with, I think, almost 60 conduit in it. Unfortunately, once we did more involved excavation to lay out the alignment for it, with our product pipelines already running in the existing access road as well as some other duct banks, there just was not room for it. It was virtually inconstructible. So what we did is we broke it out and we rerouted it basically in all the duct banks that are highlighted there in red. And you can see a photo pointing to that corner showing the actual construction of it. Slide, please. To kind of bring it all together, here's a summary of the change orders. We have 1 and 2 laid out there. 3 is pending, and we have some others that are still being negotiated and have been requested by the contractor. So we're looking at a total change order exposure on this project of about $1.1 million. On the original construction contract award, there was an award approved construction contingency, a 10% contingency for approximately $2.1 million. So if you take the delta of the two there, the remaining contingency budget is approximately $1 million. Next slide, please. So as we take the budget into consideration, there are some other opportunities that have been identified for plan improvements. And I think these are all we're talking about. A lot of the structures on site, with the exception of a tank that Veronica recently rebuilt, the MF brake tank, most of the structures are pretty aged and are showing their age on site. So we've just gone ahead and got some pricing for what it would take to repaint some of the structures on site. We've also been working with our Ocean Friendly Garden program. West Basin provides landscape designs for other public agencies for ocean friendly gardens. We do not pay for the construction, but we have produced a design for the front of the Juanita Melinda plant. So that's something that we can explore also. And then additionally, during the original construction of the plant, a lot of the surplus spoils were spread across the back half of the plant. So the grading is very uneven, and there's essentially a big mound of soil in the back. So we can do away with some of that and make the site a little bit more evenly graded as well. Next slide, please. Here's just a couple photos of those opportunities I talked about. That's the design for the Ocean Friendly Garden. Left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, you can see the difference in grade there, about a 3-foot jump up in grade between the finished elevation and where those surplus soils are. Next slide, please. To bring the budget discussion back to the start again, this is the total budget for the project. So for the CEMF project, we had a total budget of $27.6 million approximately. So if you take into account the current action item before the board, before the committee today, as well as that total change order exposure, the revised project projected award across all open agreements on this project would be at just north of $27 million. So it still would leave a delta of about $600,000, taking into account all the change order exposure and the action item before the committee today. Next slide, please. So just to review the action items that I highlighted last month, today we have the amendment for construction management services, and then next month there will be a fairly minor amendment for our specialty inspection and materials testing services with Smith Emery, primarily due to the increased compaction testing and soils inspection we've done on site. We have consumed the budget earlier than anticipated, and we're expecting an amendment of about $30,000. Here is a neat 45-second time lapse of the construction of the CMF. Let's take a look. Looks like the next slide, please. I did want to highlight, just before concluding our presentation, some key dates coming up. Now is a great time to get out to the field and see things under construction and maybe able to explore some of those additional opportunities for plant improvements. So I would encourage any even West Basin staff members, directors that are interested in coming out and taking a site visit. I'd be happy to facilitate that. Also looking forward is the commissioning and delivery of our first product water. We're projecting that to occur in July. And then a completion ceremony out in September.
So that would entail a special invitation to you as board members to come out and see the site, this spring and see how that's progressing.
Concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to
Read the recommendation.
the recommendation. The recommendation is that the board authorize the general manager to amend professional services agreement W2958 with Gutierrez Engineering Incorporated in the amount of $417,661.12 plus a 10% contingency or a total not to exceed amount of $459,427.23, resulting in a new total not to exceed contract amount of $1,813,769.23. I'd be happy to take it.
Thank you. Director Leo, do you have any comments?
No, thank you.
Director Gray, do you have any comments?
She's not on board.
She's not. Director Williams?
Again, to our general manager, he's the chief in charge. Things okay with this?
I think that Kevin has done an exceptional job managing this project. I have to say that when I came on board early on, almost a year ago now, Kevin and I talked about his oversight of this project, and he said many of the things that I was looking for in terms of oversight, in terms of the contract services, not the contractor itself, but specifically the consultants who are helping us manage this project. And the key thing being that they're not just wasting and charging the work order for no apparent reason to be out at the job site. And so I very much trust the presentation that he provided today, that there's value added services that we've been able to gain, and that we have very specific additional value added services from, is it Boudier, for this remainder of the project. We talked about Veolia having a little bit of a staff turnover. And so Boudier is able to kind of come in and augment that and help us get through this commissioning phase, which is a delicate part of the project. So I very much support the recommendation.
Good, thank you.
Couple of questions. Going to these change orders that you talked about, Kevin. So today you went through change order number 1 and number 2, which have been issued. And then change order number 3, which is pending, but most of that work been done.
Not all of it. And we have pricing on some of it. Some of it we haven't accepted.
That's the one that alluded to that little graphic off to the lower right-hand side of.
Correct, that is a portion of the work in change order 3 that has been completed. So we did that Duck Bank 7 relocation all on a time and materials basis.
So some of that money's already been spent, just the change order has not been issued. Okay, so what percentage of that would you say of the $400,000 you've already committed that you're gonna have to issue the change order?
I'd say roughly speaking, 60 to 75%.
So we're pretty close to almost spending that total amount and change orders that you've kind of shown between change orders 1, 2, and 3. I didn't quite follow you what the other outstanding potential change orders are. Maybe you can walk me through that again. You're showing that to be about $215,000 or $14,000.
Yeah, I can highlight a couple off the top of my head, but they're, to be exact, we have roughly 60 PCOs. And I think a lot of them are fairly minor. There's quite a few minor changes here and there and things that need to be revised, so I can bring back a more comprehensive list if you want.
If you don't mind, because and my question is, are these necessary changes or are these good ideas?
Item that I listed in the exposure, they've already been vetted by the CM team. So they deemed to be necessary. A lot of the ones that are outstanding, we're either pushing back on the pricing or seeing where we could do some value engineering. But the intent of my explanation of the exposure was everything that's necessary and planned for.
All right, so we're basically gonna be about $1 million in change orders on this, which is about 5%.
That's where we stand.
So if there's no unforeseen major issue, and there shouldn't be any right now unless something, really weird happens, because you're substantially pretty far along on this project. I think there's probably 60, 70+%. You're gonna be in about 5%, so that's pretty good, at least within my guidelines. On the upper end of my guidelines, but good. So, congratulations on that. On the overall project contingency, it's about $2 million, and that's supposed to cover everything, or is that just supposed to cover the construction contingency?
That is specific to the construction order.
So for the soft costs, the design and the CM costs and testing, we have a separate contingency.
Yeah, the materials testing and specialty inspection does not have a contingency. But the engineering services and our CM services do have their own contingency.
So the $417,000 in additional CM services that you're asking for today, is that covered under the existing contingency?
No, that is beyond the previously approved work contingency on materials.
So we've already gone through the soft cost contingency.
We are currently, they have roughly enough budget, assuming the previously approved contingency for services through April. The 5 months beyond April are what's covered in the amendment.
Would it be fair to say that they've already been given additional funding beyond their base contract? That was done through the contingencies that were approved at the time that those contracts were awarded. Okay, so the request now is not only to approve the additional $417,000, but to come up with additional funding.
It's for,
Well, you're asking for $417,000 in addition to wherever we are today. So my question is, what is that within the existing contingency? And if it's not, then we're asking for additional funding to be made available to this project.
Within the,
I'm just asking the question. There
Yeah, I
should be an answer.
I think the answer is the project overall is within budget, but the contract that you're asking for, the Boudier contract, it is beyond its contingency.
So that's beyond, but you're not asking for any money today. So the idea will be then, and this is a question, that the funding for the Boudier contract going over by the 417,000 will come from the savings in the contingency that was allocated to the construction contract, which has about $1 million left, assuming you stay at that 5% number that you're projecting. So we'll end up using about 75% of the construction contingency, just shifting 25% of that contingency over to the CM work.
That was the intention of our request today.
So the next item is you're asking today for a $417,000 change order to the CM contract. If I can put it that way, an extension or a modification of the agreement. Usually it's not change orders when we're talking about professional services, but we're asking for the contract amendment of $417,000. But you also mentioned then an additional contingency on top of that of 10%, which is another $40,000 plus or minus. I guess my preferences are, especially when I'm dealing with professional services and I'm beyond, I understand that the contract construction dates have extended because of procurement delays and so on. But not to build in contingency for design work, CM work. If that's required, I'm more appreciative of having it brought back. I would be supportive because I think you need to have your CM on there, and the fact is that the contract now has been extended quite a bit, which, by the way, was that done through a change order?
We have not formally added days to a change order yet, but that's anticipated in change order 3.
Okay. But these are all valid dates. And what do we do with weather days? How do we treat those?
Yeah, so typically we have an allowance in the schedule. Obviously, we've gone above and beyond the norm this year. So I think it's force majeure, act of God. I think it's usually a non-compensable time extension.
We do, in our contract, I haven't read that portion of our front end conditions. We do require the contractor to work, to assume that there's going to be a certain number of weather days which are non-compensable. Or we do not. I've done it both ways. I'm just asking to learn more about how our practices are.
It really depends. Sometimes it's built into the project schedule, into the contract documents. In certain projects, sometimes it's not. For this one, actually, the baseline schedule was accepted with no rain days in the schedule. Because the schedule was so streamlined. It's just,
So
I've seen it
So
both,
all
I've
the
seen it
rain
both ways.
days
from
are
West Bay.
all the rain days are compensable on day-for-day basis, not time. I mean, not cost.
Yeah, non-compensable time.
And the projected completion date now, is that inclusive to date of the rain days we've experienced recently? Or we're probably gonna come back and add some additional rain days to the contract completion time? I know it'll probably rain again in the next 2 weeks, so I'm not looking into the crystal ball. I'm just saying, to date, have those dates been added in that completion date that you've given us?
That included everything, that was based off of their January schedule updates, so everything through January 31st. So the technical update is still under review. Sometimes depending on the sequencing of activities, sometimes we save a few days, sometimes it gets delayed a couple of days more. So I haven't looked at the update after February, but August 31st assumes all rain days through January 31st.
Fair enough. So we're still, you're looking at potentially adding another couple of weeks of rain days to the contract completion time. In terms of the CM, then the CM is scheduled with this modification to go through the contract completion, the estimated contract completion date that we have now.
Correct. We actually have it through September 2023 for a little bit of closeout services also.
Right. I guess I would move the approval of the $417,000 extension for contract modification with Boutier. But I think at this point, not necessary to already budget them going over that amount by another 10%. And the money is available, the savings from the construction contingency based on your estimated costs for all of the change orders and potential change orders. Okay, that.
I concur. And we, time,
Yes. Okay, so with that, we will conclude that. So we do need to end this meeting at 3 o'clock, which is in 5 minutes. There are several items left that we do not have time for, unless I don't also need to go. So we.
These are
Wrap
all-
up this meeting and.
there are action items.
One action item, it is action item number 5E, which is the amendment number 1 to the agreement with Chris Helm Consulting for strategic consulting services. And then there's all of the information calendar items, which include the engineering and operations reports. We definitely don't have time for all of that.
No, I think we should just deal with the.
So we can either
action item.
terminate the meeting now, which would be my motion, or we can continue and extend this for a little bit longer. What would your desire be, Director Williams?
How would that impact your operation? Deal with the action item.
I would very much appreciate having the action item heard.
Do that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So as Director Alvarez indicated, item 5E is the amendment number 1 to the agreement with Chris Helm Consulting for strategic consulting services. And so I'll turn your attention to packet page 168, which provides the staff report summarizing the services of Chris Helm Consulting. And I believe our board has become somewhat acquainted with Mr. Helm and the services that he has provided for the district falls in a few areas. One is helping staff and the general manager develop our future direction of the West Basin Water Recycling Program. Mr. Helm has been very instrumental in the relationship building and the negotiations with the LA Department of Water and Power, with the Metropolitan Water District, and also with the, Metropolitan Water District, LADWP, and WRD. He's also assisted with the development of the strategy that we're embarking upon. He's also helped us in another area, which is looking at our various water recycling services agreement. And he's been able to effectively evaluate the status of those, identify some areas of consideration of interest to the board and to the district, and help us with developing considerations for future negotiations. I believe you also have heard from Mr. Helm in his briefings to the board as well. And what I'm looking to do with this next effort, if this amendment were to be approved, is to continue with our relationship building in the area of our water recycling program with LADWP, LA Sanitation, and Metropolitan, developing a mutual service commitment agreements, developing and participating in technical evaluations of the West Basin assets and how those can be integral to the broader regional solution for recycled water, which is basically partnering up with Pure Water SoCal, Operation X, Hyperion 2035, and then to also participate in the environmental review process throughout all of these projects, including our own, as we seek to advance projects to integrate our system into those. So with that, the amount of Chris Helm's contract was originally for $150,000 in a 12-month period. To date, we have spent $140,500. And so that leaves us a balance of $9,500 through the end of February. And so with that, I'm requesting an additional amount, an additional period in the amount of $200,000 for his continued service for an additional 12 months. I believe the contract began at the end of May when it was approved by the board. And so that would take us to another 12 months through May of 2024. So with that, allow me to read the recommendation. And so that would be that the West Basin Board of Directors approve an amendment to Agreement W3019 with Chris Helm Consulting for strategic consulting services for an additional 12-month term and an increased consideration in the amount of $200,000 for a total contractual amount not to exceed $350,000.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Deere, do you have any comments?
No.
William, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to see this go to the board without a recommendation.
My comments are, and I will then reserve them for the board meeting. I will not be supportive of this action. I don't see the justification for it, but we will have that further discussion at a later date. With that, that will conclude the meeting for today, and we will reconvene in approximately 3 or 4 weeks, whenever our next scheduled board meeting is. Thank you.
And file or the information calendar for the board meeting?
Just receive and file.
Yeah.
Why don't we stop?